So let's get into the SMART technique. I love how the acronym SMRT is actually kind of a SMRT. There's no A there actually, but they call it the SMART technique. And I do think it is quite ingenious, this technique. So it means spontaneous muscle release technique. And you might be thinking, well, if it's spontaneous, it must be happening right then in the moment. Well, what actually happens is that you have to hold the position for 20 to 45 seconds, and then the nervous system has a spontaneous release because of the information it gets during those 20 to 45 seconds. I think it can be longer, and also it can happen sooner, but it depends on the tension of the muscle and what's going on. So what's going on there in this held position? Basically, it's a counterintuitive therapy because normally we're thinking, and what we do in the sessions is that there's the bundle or the tension, and we're either rubbing or compressing or moving because we want this to dissolve. So even if it's here, we might be coming from this angle because we want it to move out, right? We want it to dissolve itself. In this technique, it's almost like this is where it's at, and we're taking it and holding it and bringing it slightly in. From the side, you would see that there, and I'm like holding the bones and the muscles inward. So I'm folding and bringing it in upon itself. In yoga, this is even similar to, oh, look at that white little speck. That was so cool. And yoga, and right when I said in yoga, and then when you reach samadhi, obviously this is much more complex happenings of the mind, but it's also considered a folding of the mind over itself. So it's absorbed in itself. There's nothing else. There's no meditation of the candle and me or this and that or a focused objective. It is just with itself, and this renders to a whole different era and dimension of expansion. So basically, there is the muscle attached to the bone through tendons, and ligaments are attached to bone, and they're holding things taut. And I think not very often do they get, if you can see like the slight tension there, there's too much light there, maybe there. Not often do they get this. You see how I just slightly moved in, and I could even feel the release on my wrist when I just press this part of my wrist in. At this moment, it won't spontaneously release because there's muscle activation here holding my arm up. That's why it's key for someone else to hold your limb for you and move it in. Now, on parts of your body that are resting and still on their own, like when I was working on my foot, the whole foot and leg is completely relaxed, hopefully, and I could work on my individual toes and practice it on my own and get the spontaneous muscle release. So the bone is alive, right? And it's not so dry and brittle as we think it would be, like how we think of bones that were studied, because these were from beings that are no longer alive. But it's actually a very live tissue, and there's a layer, the periosteum, on the outside that covers the bone. Let's say that's the bone. And the muscle interacts with the periosteum, and the periosteum interacts with the other layer of the bone and the other layer of the bone. So when the muscle is here and I'm moving the bone just slightly at a certain angle in or out, let's say I move it there and then I press it in, then the whole nervous system that works on that bone gets a message. That's a signal that it is processing. It had been holding the tension, sometimes for years, or sometimes since the accident, maybe a week or two, or maybe it was that morning, right? It's been holding that tension, and all of a sudden, the bone has gotten a message that it's safe. They have moved into itself. It has moved into not needing to hold the tension, which, if you think about it, how often do we get compression between the joints? I think it's especially the crossover of the joints is the key factor here, because the muscle is working between this joint and this joint to do this, right? So this is the line of tension. And if I wanted to release this, if I had this part tense, I would take this part of the metatarsal bone and push it down towards in the joint. Now here I exaggerate it so you can see that I'm pushing the bone in, but it actually would be very slight and very subtle, because once again, if there's this little space between the joints, I want to give it the information, but I don't want to overload it and re-jam it. So what you will see in the sessions is that now and then, if I find a part of tension in the line where I feel it's crossing the bone, and I can have access to do a SMRT technique, there will come a slight pause in the massage so I can see if it can release in those 20 to 45 seconds. So it kind of fits in with the positional release, but if you remember the positional release, let's say my bicep has the contraction. In positional release, I was coming all the way in and then holding. And here I can even come in and massage this part or whatever. It's in its shortest form. I have decreased the muscle entirely. And there I might hold it and work on it. I think this works wonders as well. I'm very satisfied with this technique. And I do think that the nervous system gets something. Even I think here I could combine now the SMRT technique and press the elbow in, and it would affect this joint in the shoulder that would be holding anything there. In this case, if I'm going for the bicep, I probably want to hold it up and then press it down in there. Now I can feel that release, even right now, doing nothing. I wonder what would happen if I hold it there 20 seconds on myself. I think it's a little trickier because I am kind of holding it. But in SMRT technique, so in the spontaneous muscle release, I wouldn't need to like fold the whole muscle into itself. What I need to do is fold the nervous system of the bone into itself. So I might just hold the angle of the arm. And if you were laying on the table, right, you would be here. This would be stopping your arm. So then I would just bring this in, and that would also push this joint into there. And it would release the nervous system of the bone because it's interacting with the joint. Here, I'm coming, like the joint is open, but here I'm compressing the top of, now it eludes me, these two, the tibia and the fibula are on the leg, but this is the humerus. Let me pause here. I was going to look it up, but it came to me right as I paused. It's the radial and the ulna. So the radius is from the thumb, and then the ulna, there's are the two bones that I would press in to the humerus, and the humerus will go into the scapula and the other bones. So the angle is different for the SMRT release, but I think there can also be application of SMRT release in the positional releases. And sometimes you will feel there's like a twinging, and if you're really in tune with your body, you can feel it. Sometimes I can even feel it. And I think the romance with this technique is how non-invasive and how passive and how friendly it is to the nervous system. I was just marveled at how much could get done with so little bulliness going on. I love the deep sensation, like the next deep tissue lover, right? And I love when people can take the time to sink into the deep tissue. Like I try to give that amount of time, or warm it up enough, or give it enough prep, or go slow enough so that we can get there. But I did feel that if you prime the nervous system first, accessing the deep tissue afterwards is just like a gold mine, because it's all like, how do you say, like hovering over the bone. I feel it already. The vibration is different of the muscle, because it's almost like you gave it permission to access its deepest hold from its roots. And well, that's just, it's almost like magic. So I felt like, oh my gosh, we're learning magic tricks here on the table. So that's what the SMRT technique is about. Looking forward to sharing. Some of you have already experienced it and noticed a little bit the difference, the shift. It doesn't always have to be that way, especially if you want your traditional relaxation muscle, or you just want to like therapeutic, want to dump, want to sleep. We'll just go with the Swedish and a little bit of the deep. No problem. It doesn't have to be in every session, but a lot of us are there for, let's see the change. Let's see the results. Where's the transition? Where's the transformation? What does it take to resolve the thing going on? And then there's that. So now there's that gift in stratosphere massage. As I was talking with one of the clients, I'm like, I think it's like the next level of massage therapy. And I'm like, oh, that's why it's stratosphere massage, next level deep tissue connection. I named it, and then I brought myself up to it, right? And then I'm like, imagine what else is out there. I'm super excited. I'm super excited about this. And I can't believe that I totally landed this training in this workshop on a whim. But as they say, there are no coincidences. It was destined for me. It was destined for us. And now it is ours. So looking forward to sharing with that on the table, just so we can feel good and live fully.